근데 아니 다바지 녜샤디 그런 참아 순사위도 상녜샤디 바지 아니 거딘지에 대한 도지시 슈가 되지 임바자.
The way I feel right now is that all of the other speakers have said exactly what I wanted to say. And it seems that the only thing left for me to say is to thank you all for your kindness.
지전에 나란단 대회 스토리는 주제 안에 거딘지에 대한 소화된 dengu 있어.
That's all. But maybe in the spirit of appreciating the kindness of you all, I could share with you a little story about myself.
나한테서 상물로 랭게 상물도 민자외 에네 구유제 나로래야 상로 충분히 차디야래. 나 중두 에네 바지 나 깨바네 정신기 뉴스 상물로 지금 오만에 저리 체상으로지 나 통도스 에네 딜레 뉴스상아 중두 에네 셈 나로래야 템퍼질이야 그 중두네 돌로마도 교인데 비치 나 정도스 상면지 가수에 지 가수에 지 자침으로 쓰대야지 정도스
That's all. From the time I was very young onward, I was given a lot of different responsibilities. And it always seemed to me when I was young that everything was laid out before me. All of the plans for me were already made. I was given the clothes that I needed to wear and told where I needed to be, given these very precious and holy-looking robes to wear with the understanding that it was something sacred or important.
나로 듄이야 레벨거리야 and searching group Karmapa 쟁게 그래서 아직 그룹 레벨 고슬래제네 근데 얘들 이제 바지 아바다 아무 것도 계시입니다 쟤네 아니 결혼 까먹었어 아 남사 공부를 안 들어왔어 근데 미마부증 알아야 계절진이 용어도 급디도 사는 결혼이야 초와 컨트롤 중스 컨트롤이 까먹버렸어 두산 컨트롤 초와 중스 그래서 초와스 게임도 까먹었어 두산 지잖아 지怎么 먹어요 봐 가보시다 유기를 sometimes
But before that kind of formal lifestyle happened for me, I was living in eastern Tibet with my family, and when I was 7 years old, all of a sudden, a search party arrived at my home. They were looking for the next Karmapa, and I noticed they were talking to my mom and dad, and the news came to me that they were telling me that I was the Karmapa. And these days, people ask me a lot, how did that feel? How did that feel when they came and whisked you away and your lifestyle completely changed? And what I mostly say is that at that time, it was a pretty interesting idea to me. I thought that things would be pretty fun and there would be more things to play with.
이미네 니주도 원에 전에다 리차요 말았어. 다 까먹어 차이 두사는 걸리 가수에 소수에게 보유 네 카테제 아니 파마다 카테제 아니 아장기다 트래디셔널 가수다 루스 수균기다 루스 당부에 대해 공변 나눠 직수직 나눠야 대체 아장기다 적부 아주 미지당부는 시체는 적부이나 두레미야 딱 간다 그게 가수다 스트레주는 시 아주 배게 계시야 답에 스트레주는 시 대오레스 드리스가 왔다 군전은 시바 대오레스고 제자 다 드리시 두산에 섬려야 아니 까마버스 두산에 지 긴구르여 버지당 아다나시 까마버치야데 레라고 민비치 수수의 파마다 카테 다나시 망부치 려동고요 현수스
But it didn't turn out to be so fun and entertaining as I thought it would have been. I was placed in a pretty strictly controlled environment, and immediately a lot of different responsibilities in terms of my education and so forth were heaped upon me. I was separated largely from my family, including my mother and father. I didn't have many personal friends to spend time with, but I was expected to perform these prescribed duties. So it turned out that my fantasy about an entertaining life of being the Karmapa wasn't going to come true. It more felt to be the case to me that I was being treated like a statue, and I was to sit in one place like a statue would.
Okay. Ta yimbi ne ya. Karsue ji pame zawa dang, da na ji xiangi zawa di dele ka chewe sambar ke yongmen dos. Even böni su and logic sunbe gaulia and böni su pebre du sana ne su su pama de buje da na xin da zhou de pei de zang lo ge jiang zhen bu li a xia ji zu pei yong re de teng dong yi ne hu zhu de zawa ye ba dang energy gu zhu ga shui da ge ding gi ji de de sam ya yue ba chi cu du.
Nevertheless, I felt that even though I've been separated from my loved ones, and of course now I'm even further away. When I was 14, I escaped from Tibet and became even further removed from my mother and father, my relatives, my friends, and my homeland. But nevertheless, there's no real sense of separation from me in my heart in terms of the love that I feel for these people. I feel still a very strong connection of love for all of these people and for the land.
Samsange amala liya kawa tengyu, kawa tengyu sana, ane kawa tang simbi kita pada second liya susu di zawa chun, kasu zewe nyubadi tarum bud su legi yubad cida, ane di kasu tengdong ini semliya.
And I still do get to keep in touch with my mother and father, albeit infrequently. I talk to my mother once in a blue moon on the telephone, and my experience is that when I'm talking to her, with every second that passes during our conversation, the feeling of love that binds us is bringing us closer and closer together.
Teringe de karsho samrsana tangang chorab jenge da tadejin zombulindi ane ngwebe yage shiran zhugo are ane dana xin zombulindi azu pinzu benda ted na xi chen pinzu mi mang ji de ya tu je no karsho donzum cha da and trouble was a chag, cook up Mount Jugari. I stuck of use. Yimbina, Natsugi energy, Chigi, Num Gurdan, Chigi Yaget some member, Natsu Toran Chequati, Samlia, Majib Chequati, Caressana, Chigi, yes, Samlia, Natsu Nang Simki, and a Jabatan, Laboratu. Natsu Benet the design of Chevy Bine, as the same design, yeah, Toran Chequati. Dana xin benati technology of Jimbina, same technology delia, Tonan Chequade, Shida Ketchum Sontos.
So those were just a few remarks about my personal background. And in terms of other things that I wanted to share with you in terms of ideas, I think it's wonderful to have a situation like this where so many people from different backgrounds and places can come together, exchange their ideas, and form relationships of friendship with each other. And I think that's symbolic of what we're seeing in the world in general, that the world is becoming smaller and smaller, and that all of the peoples in the world are enjoying more opportunities for connection. That's wonderful, but we should also remember that we should have a similar process happening on the inside. Along with outward development and increase of opportunity, there should be inward development and deepening of our heart connections as well as our outward connections. So we spoke and we heard some about design this week. I think that it's important for us to remember that we need to keep pushing forward on the endeavor of the design of the heart. We heard a lot about technology this week, and it's important for us to remember to invest a lot of our energy in improving the technology of the heart.
지당 아주 성원은 이념도 저 고급 방법 중요하다. 저분이 총총 중요할 때 이번에 던동 아주 생각 나로리야. 핀수 셈다 니버 차리야. 파르도 주여 챙게 드브 챙게 지보 망보여 소도.
That's so. So even though I'm somewhat happy about the wonderful developments that are happening in the world, still I feel a sense of impediment when it comes to the ability that we have to connect with each other on a heart-to-heart or a mind-to-mind level. I feel that there are some things that are getting in the way.
지당아 두규 미신달이야 저버지도사는 셈리야. 닝대 저버차. 뭐시 지당 안 포지션 기금구마부에서 같이 intelligent 제고레스. 마도 저랑 연가 어렸을 애들이 용디도 간다야 가다 셈대지 저버차 지기스. Ben today Hindustan but tinjilianga Afghanistan yongyo yongge ene group chi tobre.
That's all.
An kuzong azu kesho.
That's all. My relationship to this concept of heart-to-heart connection or mind-to-mind connection is an interesting one because as a spiritual leader, I'm always attempting to open my heart to others and offer myself up for heart-to-heart and mind-to-mind connections in a genuine way with other people. But at the same time, I've always been advised that I need to emphasize intelligence over the heart-to-heart connections because being someone in a position like mine, if I don't rely primarily on intelligence, then something dangerous may happen to me. So it's an interesting paradox at play there. But I had a really striking experience once when a group from Afghanistan came to visit me, and we had a really interesting conversation.
아주 뒤고래야 계시ומ래. berlin buddha 마세.
That's all.
부터 지바. 또 군도 지바.
That's all.
먼저 뒤고래야 계시옴래. 주두산에 녜게 초에 나로랴. 지당기 에네 근데 무슬림 출루리비나 아니 믹스에 가서 군자스케요 말봐.
That's.
저우스케요 말봐.
That's.
군조디 다 수수 뭐지 봐.
No.
아니 남배기 아니 수수 주베 다 가르쳐래 덤바질이야 대구치기 안에 또 인비네 지체비나 아니 디가 주기 다 상기 군저도야디 아주 디 자민롱마디 강한점 주바
No.
가서 berlin 가서 월스 맞지 대는시 전대 도와를 대네 지지는 아주 핀주 무슬림당 다나시 남부 핀주 원내전에 지기지 세부 통하지리야 다디 부단도 강한도 chen 디 도와를 대네 세부 통하지 자와요레스 데 셰빈스 드린도 상에 섬리야 그도 이미네 아주 셈기 셈리야 이제차다 이제차디 개치슈디 아니 튠조 positive 이제 토하는 아주 자와야당 셈셈리야 지리야 아니 가수에 투지자의 개치시라는 성도스
That's all. So we ended up talking about the Bamiyan Buddhas, which, as you know, were destroyed some years ago in Afghanistan. But the basis of our conversation was a different approach to spirituality on the part of the Muslim and Buddhist traditions. Of course, in Muslim, because of the teachings around the concept of idolatry, you don't find as many physical representations of divinity or of spiritual liberation as you do in the Buddhist tradition, where, of course, there are many statues of the Buddha that are highly revered. So we were talking about the differences between the traditions, and what many people perceived as the tragedy of the destruction of the Bamiyan Buddhas. But I offered the suggestion that perhaps we could look at this in a positive way. What we saw in the destruction of the Bamiyan Buddhas was the depletion of matter, some solid substance falling down and disintegrating. Maybe we could look at that to be more similar to the falling of the Berlin Wall, where a divide that had kept two types of people apart had collapsed and opened up a door for further communication. So I think that in this way, it's always possible for us to derive something positive that can help us understand one another better.
Today in Lusana, and Mazut draw me, yeah, and it is some Jew, Namju, Mazut Ras, Cashew, we get out of Gidaji, Cashew, the Zambulin Deliabe, Cashew, Kurda, Jibumimba, Mazuji, Detan, you have a Maon Basidan, and then draw Tamzilia, Gunyumgi, and then Cashew, that Zambulin Dream to Yag, Bezuchawati, as the Miss Samju Jenki.
So, with regard to the development that we've been talking about here at this conference, I really feel that the development that we make shouldn't create a further burden for us as human beings, but should be used to improve our fundamental lifestyle of how we live in the world.
Bena design gave one which been a giant of Gina, but should I guess down to water? Should I have orders? That you bring out some time where the idea is sympathy, Sergi, Archer or Sana, so that been natural resources, but that day, Mambuchi pigeon to Yavati. They do Sane, Azu Zawa, Porni, Zemolia, and Julia Mabchi. That regime beating. The need to sign Azu the sincere motivations are. That day, last some number gone, as you need to cash it, as you sing your mare. Even need to cash it, she be there, as you told her, Delia, Tonama Jebe, need to stamp Chadi, Benacasan, Bena Cashway, that's the only Tolia, Pumia Manguchi, Cashway, Gangi, the Tunga, Neta Manguchina, Cardevity, me Mangu sing your the imbine. Delia, last some number good in Lane, G. Carshway, so sure about Donia, Chonji, Rangi, Kurlana, G. The day get married. The need to start the marriage you send Dana, and charging us Zoblindi, Yagan to your charging, and as you Zawati, Carshweta, Meva, Zawat Tushi do you. The need to start the Lagunio maybe needs to chat yours, balance maybe. Of course, I rejoice in the development and the growth and the rise of the noble land of India, the great country of India. But at the same time, I think, as some of us have acknowledged, we need to be aware that some aspects of this rise are coming at the cost of the very ground on which we stand. So as we are climbing the tree, some of the things that we're doing in order to climb the tree are actually undermining the tree's very root. And so what I think it comes down to is a question of not only having information of what's going on, but paying attention to that and letting that shift our motivation to become more sincere and genuinely positive. We have heard this week about the horrible sufferings, for example, that so many women of the world are enduring day to day. We have that information, but what often happens to us is that we don't really choose to pay attention to it. We don't really choose to allow that to cause there to be a shift in our heart. So I think the way forward for the world, one that will bring the path of outer development in harmony with the real root of happiness, is that we
allow the information that we have to really make a change in our heart.
Today, do sana. A주 happiness, digi saadi. A주 아주 야천부 benede 가르쳐 모르지 부르체 안다는 감부지 부르체 자기야 부르지 여비나 and happiness 요아데 갈아하샤데 소데 디기 자와데 아주지 랑기 셈 셈리아 아니 가르쳐지 sincere motivation 디지 다 간다 다데 에너지 나와 가르는 게 여비네 딜량 아주 에너지 가르쳐 띵사별관에 좋아래야다 아니 딜리아 가르쳐지 셈냠을 좋아하디 개춤시라차디 알아성도스.
So I think this sincere motivation is very important for our future well-being, our deep sense of well-being as humans. And I think that means sinking in to whatever it is you're doing now. Whatever work you're trying to do now to benefit the world, sink into that. Get a full taste of that.
Today, do something. Nima kashi ringliya. 아주 대체 컨퍼런스 하지. 디나로랑 아주 우기 교와 동창만 붙이야. 아들 가시 아주 교와 참모들이야. Not pay attention. 게요 말았어. 아주 그뒤에 디기사르베 처음으로 지당베 impressive. 디데르지 고나르 샤디 알았어. 오늘 제비 임이나 아니 디기데 아주 우기 교와 참모 춘지에네 영원대버 진바디.
나서.
시도.
So since we've been here this week, we've taken millions of breaths collectively, and perhaps we haven't witnessed any course changes happening in our lives. We often miss the very subtle changes, and I think that sometimes we develop grand concepts of what happiness might look like for us. But that if we pay attention, we can see that there are little symbols of happiness in every breath that we take.
Then you had the Sanglo, when a Gasway, Lassam year, the Batan, Chamsi year, the Batan. Tanasi, and the Shidaki, Tishin, and the Namju Chipu, the Ganga Pay, or did do some answer that Jig, Susugi, Tolia, the Gasway, gave us some book on a Tindichi, Lado, but Gasway that tend to be Chagan, some much Lado Lambati, as you Zabulinda, Mount Bay Chedo, and 소소리 개피네 간다지 소소기 아니 참바다 자와디 아니 무투이지 점불리야 치시바 네트에 아니 가수 나로나
맞아
답았어
맞아 So every one of you who has come here is so talented and you have so much to offer to the world. I think it would be a good note to conclude on then, to just take a moment to appreciate how fortunate we are to have come together in this way and exchanged ideas, and really form a strong aspiration and energy within ourselves that we will take the good that has come from this conference, the momentum, the positivity, and we will spread that and plant it in all of the corners of the world.
다리데 럭키미 아주 공기 가수에 시락 배주 제정한 데야 깨담 제가 시락 가보죠 가서 담보 대스야 안에 루브데 버샤미도 참바르 보듯이 미즈 그냥 가르 참바 봐야 김선 가르스 Tomorrow is my talk 제자 들으slai 제자 간다 공기 시락 배주 제베데 시락 가보죠 안데
Lakshmi has worked incredibly hard even in inviting me, let alone everything else that she has done to make this happen. And I was somewhat resistant at times. And I was also very nervous throughout this week. I was feeling under the weather and dizzy and so forth, and people would ask me why. I would tell them it's because I have to talk tomorrow. So Lakshmi had to put up with me through all of that, but I very much appreciate the opportunity she's given me to be here. And
Thank you.
to you, everyone, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Somewhere in America, there's a doctor who can peer into the future. There's a nurse who can access in an instant every patient's past. And because the whole hospital's working together, there's a family who can breathe easy right now. Somewhere in America, we've already answered some of the nation's toughest healthcare questions. And the over 60,000 people of Siemens are ready to do it again. Siemens answers.